This is episode 249 of the Focused Mindset podcast. And today you get to listen in on a conversation that I recently had with the executive director of the California Association of School Counselors, none other than Loretta Whitson. And those of you that know her know that she's made a huge impact, not only in the world of school counseling here in California, but in education in general. And so if you're a school counselor educator right now, share this with those people that you know, because this is one of those conversations that you're going to want others to hear. So I say, share it now. I give you full permission to post it, share it, whatever you'd like, because it was such an honor for me to sit down and have this very special, candid conversation with Loretta. And at the end, she gave a special message to those who are just now getting into the counseling field and those that are in education and those of us that want to make impact and be leaders. You're really not going to want to miss any second of this special interview as we launch our Women of Impact series. So let's get started. Let's have some great conversations using the solution-focused approach. I'm Cher Kretz, and as a school counselor, I've learned a lot about how to lead with hope. I've talked about it on the TEDx stage. It's what we discuss right here. And I want to thank you for following this show. You know you can head over to thefocusedmindset.com to get more. Right now, let's level up our mindset so we can be solution focused. Let's go. Hello, welcome to the Focused Mindset podcast. And today you get to listen in on a conversation with Dr. Loretta Whitson, and she's the executive director of the California Association of School Counselors. It is such an honor and pleasure to have you here, Loretta. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Cher. Really appreciate it.
Well, you know, this podcast, we've talked about a lot of different subjects, but one thing I haven't really tackled is women of influence. And that's what we're doing right now. If you were to think back, what originally motivated you to move towards school counseling? Tell me a little bit about your origin story.
I got an undergraduate in communications, and I thought I would go into that kind of sector and work. And I realized in that process, I really would get dismayed with leadership because they weren't treating people appropriately, or, there was all about the bottom line, the dollar, And so I thought you need to get into a profession where you will never lose sight of what you believe in. And I realized I would never lose sight of children and youth, that I would not give up no matter how hard the adults are, how hard everything is, that I would stay in the school counseling profession, and I would be motivated. And that is indeed true because I've been doing this a long time now. And so in that process, that's what brought me into education. And for a little bit of time, I was a school counselor, not for very long, because what was surprising, I was asked to be an administrator like 3-4 years into being a school counselor.
Wow.
And yeah, it was quite amazing. And I think because I was, I look at it, the superintendent called me and I thought I was in trouble,
What did I do now?
I was always trying to create systems for kids, things that would really support them and help them within the school counseling realm. And I believe that, from talking to the superintendent after my initial shock, and then she said, we just think you have the right ideas. And she wanted me to start a clinic for the entire city, a health and mental health clinic. And so I thought, what does she see in me? Because I didn't see it in myself. I didn't see myself really as a leader. I didn't see myself as anything but, trying to help people, And so that, when you start doing the leadership roles and you're trying to create, like, hire contractors and create systems and put it past the board and get approvals, I began to.
You're a totally different role all of a sudden.
Say this is maybe my niche in creating more structures. And in that role, I could actually help school counselors too by advocating for having more school counselors, more things to help children too.
Yeah. So it just kind of took a turn, and And when in that process did you begin the association?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, and that was also I was asked to be a board member. I think people nudge people to be board members for the California Association of School Counselors. So,
Poke,
uh,
poke, poke. You can do it. You can do it.
yeah, yeah,
That kind
that's
of
right.
thing.
Come on board; it'll be great. And so there was an old organization, and
Mm,
so I was asked to be a part of that by Trish Hatch. Dr. Hatch
yes.
asked me, and I said, "Sure, I'll be a board member." They had some for every region. There was like 12 regions, and so anyway, within a short length of time, maybe a year, they were saying we really need a president. So this was in the late 1990s, and so what was happening in that setting was there was no advocacy for school counselors. There was
Oh,
nothing being
yeah.
done. It's all response services. We had 1,000 to 1. Our ratios were so high. One of the motivating factors is when I went back to the American School Counselors Association. People from other state would say, "We don't even talk to you in California because your ratios are so high. How do you?" It's like a different job when you have 1,000 to 1 over, more closer to where we are now. Which is
Mm-hmm.
like 450, 400 to 1, 250 to 1. So I realized we were just really we had a reputation that I wasn't proud of.
Wow.
And that motivated me to try to fix the old organization after about a year and a half of trying to get provisions and trying to get things passed through that board. A group of us united to start cask, and the first money that we spent, besides a clerical person, it was the second person that got paid was our lobbyist. We needed people to advocate for us in Sacramento and
Mm-hmm.
build our industry uh, at that level and at the ground level too.
Yeah. I mean, it's been 25 years, and it was just back in October when we had our conference and we were able to celebrate together. And I know for me as a counselor, I've been a counselor for 21 of those years, and it's been such a it's been such a staple for me, because I didn't really know anything else. It's just always something I knew I can lean on, depend on, that the association would be there for me. I knew that they had my back. And it's interesting that, you had to see that need and then take the bold move to fill it. And now we can look back, and that's what we did a lot at the conference, is look back at just everywhere that we've been and just take a minute to be like, wow, I can remember all the things that were on this one amazing video that you were highlighted in, just kind of went through the whole history a little bit in the first 7, 8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm watching, I'm remembering when we were fighting to be able to have advocacy and trying to figure out how we weren't going to lose all our counselors and then building it back up. And the whole journey just seems so surreal to look at it that way. I can't imagine being on your end, because I was just on my end thinking, holy moly, how many kids am I seeing now? Where am I going to work next? But from your end, just to be able to have all of these years of advocating for school counselors, I mean, what does that mean to you?
I'm honored. I'm so honored to do that and to think that um, I can influence an industry and have more services for kids. I mean, we're the biggest association now in the nation at a state
Mm,
level for school counseling. We have lowered, we've doubled the number of school counselors, lowered our ratios, and doubled the number of school counselors just in the last 7 years. Not, but
yeah.
if you were looking back, how many was employed back in the turn of the century, and now, we're about 3 times, 4 times higher
Mm,
than what was that, and to bring that service to to schools, and the idea that I thought schools were broken without school counselors.
yeah. Yeah.
I could have used a school counselor when
Mm,
I was in school. My kids, my grandchildren, have counted on school counselors. So it was an easy thing to advocate for because of the
yeah.
work that was being done locally. And I just have a little bit of a knack, for kind of kicking down doors a little bit. But, and I don't mind talking with two people in power. I've never been like, at all
Intimidated by it
intimidated
or
by
anything.
it.
Yeah.
No, I just think they're just another human being,
Mm,
we're all equal, big equal
yeah.
sign, so yeah, I just use that skill and my drive that's based on kind of a political interest too, is how we
Mm,
make politics work. I know it can be a four-letter word, politics.
You had to have a lot of boldness, and stepping into that role of helping out with something like legislation, it would be, for some people would feel like it was too bold. And you said you kind of have that tenacity that to knock down some doors and do things like that. And I wonder if, like, was that ever something that you came across, like, that you thought was going to be a bad thing that you were that way, and then you found out that it was your strength? Or how did you lean into that as a strength?
Well, I don't know if I'm so good at knocking down doors for myself. I think that's probably my weakness. It's like, what I do for others when I think there's a cause. It's just
Mm,
always, I've never been able to be silent when there's a need. Um, so, sometimes I was dealing with a state agency this last week, and they had produced something I thought was pretty bad. And so, and it was something for school people to look at, and the video they asked me to review, and I thought, okay, if I say what I think, then they're going to have a conversation. It's going to take me hours to explain and to write down. And so I let it sit for maybe about an hour, to think through it. And then I thought, I can't let that go out that way.
mm.
I need to say my truth in it, and whatever they do with it is okay.
Mhm.
But it's just I feel very responsible to speak the truth in those situations. And
Speak your conviction. Your conviction.
yeah, and I kind of laugh about it because there's a few people I know that are just like that, and we just try to talk ourselves to not always interject. And so, like, if even the association, it's like, you know you own it. I mean, I didn't plan on being the executive director when we started this association. There was no way I
Really?
was thinking that way. I was just thinking,
What? Are you serious?
oh no, I wasn't creating a career pathway for me. I was just creating an association that would represent school
You're just
counselors.
stepping into what needed to happen, basically, more or less.
And that's what I always do. And things happen that way.
Yeah.
My role as a school district administrator, everything is like I step into what I think needs to happen. And I feel like I can manage it, you know.
Mhm.
So then I do it. And
Well,
then
like you
I own
said,
it. Yeah.
if it lines up with what you believe in, if
Right.
it lines up with what's already your conviction in your heart, then
Yeah.
it's a natural thing to step forward into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some people say, why are you still working? So, because I am almost 71. So I'll be real honest on that one, because people ask that, and they equate. And I think when they say, I can hear it in their voice when they say, why are you still working? And it's like, working to them is not like a good thing. I mean, and I don't think of it as working. I think of it as advocating. It's not like I'm toiling over something,
You're living
I'm
your
living
life.
in it,
And that,
and it has intersected every part of my life.
yeah.
Advocating for school counselors, it's who I am. Even like your name, Cher. Like when I go up to Sacramento, like Cher. We know who Sunny and Cher is, right? But
Yeah.
when I go to Sacramento now, it's like I'm always
Loretta.
surprised that people, oh, you're Loretta. We heard
Yeah.
about you, and I
Yeah.
think, oh, they know me by my first name. And
Right? You're a first name kind of person at this point in this field. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, that's how I really didn't want recognition.
Yeah.
But I had a really great leader in my life, who's passed away, but she was just remarkably involved in politics.
Mm,
And she said, people want to follow Loretta. This is when there was early on in the school counseling organization. They want to follow someone too. It's
mhm.
okay to say I. And so
Yeah.
she was a school board president at the time. She goes, "You always say we did this, but you do something that is an I statement." And
Oh
so,
my gosh. That is so
that helped
amazing.
me
Yeah.
to assume that leadership, and understand it a little bit differently. That behind someone we can, and a group of people we can move forward, uh,
Mhm.
with a common vision and voice, in order to
Yeah.
get things done. Yeah.
I was just recollecting when I didn't know you yet, but I had witnessed you leading, and you probably didn't even know that this happened. It wasn't last year, but it was the year before that when we did all of those really fun recordings for the 25th
Mhm.
anniversary.
Yeah.
And I was in the same room getting ready for my recording, and you had walked in, And you're right. It's not because you're trying to be bossy, but you have developed a leadership presence that is bold in the type of way where it's kind boldness. And that is so rare in a person. And I was stepping back, I was kind of watching the interactions between you and the people that were around. And I noticed how everything shifted in the room when you came in. Like everyone, because it was like, oh, Loretta's walking in, and they kind of stopped and they were like turning and they're paying attention. And what do you want? And I'm like, who is this woman that everyone is like, she's somebody, and then when they said your name, I'm like, oh, that's Loretta. Okay. And I was just kind of
Mhm.
watching. And then I was like, you had such a kind, calm presence, but also very bold. And I was like, it's very rare that I see that. And I
Mhm.
kind of like stepped back and I was like, I admire that quality so much. And I remember standing there and watching that whole thing. And it dawned on me in that moment, because I'm always called bold and blunt. Like, you're so bold, counselors, you're not the kind of counselor that just stays so quiet. And, and most counselors, they're wearing their fuzzy sweaters, and I'm coming in like, hey, let's do this. And in that moment, I was like, you can be bold and kind. You can have that combination of passion, but also strength. And you found that over the years. And you know what I did? I opened up my notes in my phone. I still have it. And I put Loretta, someone I'd like to get to know, in my notes. And I
Oh,
had no idea that I would ever like what would happen, but the power of affirmations, right? And then we just started coming on our path and ended up
yeah.
getting to know each other. But it wasn't because you were, I mean, I already know who you were as far as the leader. It was because of that interaction of what I watched in you that made me know that you have a gift that way. And also it's developed over the years, I'm sure.
So it's with everyone. I think it is about kindness and respecting who they are. So when Tony Thurman, our state superintendent, when COVID hit, we had already developed a relationship. And so, I was the first on the first Zoom call with, he used to be a social worker. And so his boss, his former boss, and me, and we're going, okay, what are we going to do about mental health in our children in
So
schools?
true.
So, and I knew enough about him that, we, over the time, or even the governors that I have met, I knew enough about them in conversation that it helped me, like when I do see them. I've learned that too with people that represent school counselors, like our lobbying firm and things like that. The folks, their children, what their interests are, and a lot happens in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I had one legislator, Anthony Porcetino, and it was about a bill that I didn't think it was good to have pupil personnel services on it, because we had known each other over the years as a senator, and he was actually getting close to terming out. He said to me as we started and I had a couple other people, the lobbyists, a couple other
Mm-hmm.
people observing the conversation, and he just pats me on the arm and he says, Loretta, he goes, I just want you to know I'm going to hell. And I said, oh, I said,
Well,
well, I,
okay.
I tried to get that conversation from being a counseling conversation to being more proactive to what
Yeah.
message of it, because I don't want to miss. Usually they give you 10 to 15 minutes. And I said, I'm going to pick that conversation with you
Yeah.
later about
Let's
that.
put a pin in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting that he felt comfortable enough
Yeah.
to say that, and that he was interested in, I mean, he was being sincere
Mm-hmm.
in disclosing.
Yeah.
And
You were the person that he knew he could do that with.
and I said, so you've done a lot of hard things. I think I turned it into, you've done a lot of hard things that
Yeah.
sometimes wasn't above board or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
something like that. And we moved from it. But I was really happy that, when I explained it, I said, we go back to a lot of times I've come into his office to ask about legislation. He had a very big interest in mental health in particular, because he had family suicide in his family.
Oh
So
my gosh.
that was,
It was
that was
personal.
those
Yeah.
things. And I knew about that. I knew what he was trying to
Mm-hmm.
get to, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily always agreeing with him. But I understood it, and I understand his humanity and and that gave me a little drive on how he was feeling about his journey. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no one thinks about those moments when you're out there advocating, that there's personal moments scattered all the way through there
Yeah.
where you just need to see people as a person and be in that moment, and then also be strong and bold about what needs to happen.
Yes, I said, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that it can be a very good the quality of boldness can be underrated sometimes. I mean, you need to have a conviction behind what you're saying, and if you really do believe in it, you need to be able to stand on that. Um,
Mhm.
so that's basically what you're doing at the end of the day when you finally do need to do the advocating.
That's a
So
good, yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I mean, it's the same way even in the boots on the ground in the schools, I mean, I can think of examples right in that happened with me as a school counselor, that a child comes in, he got caught with vapes, and I'm in elementary school, and he's lying and he's blaming another child. And
Mhm.
so it became very frustrating to the administration that you're having a child that is lying, just blaming this poor other innocent child that was like, what are we talking about? When I sat down with that child, I realized that he's spending almost all of his time after school at a park downtown that has a lot of really rough people in it. And a
Mhm.
lot of the people that he's hanging around are adults,
Mm.
and so immediately I knew that he needed a place to go after school. I went to the after school program and I ended up asking them, do you have any spots? I know you guys have a waiting list, but I have a student that needs it. He needs to not be in the park at night. And she said, we save spots just for this. And she was able to get him in. And then I was able to circle back to the administration and say, he needs this kind of support. And I'm going to get him in the after school program. And it's a small level, but it's advocating for what needs to happen,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's why I think that, and it's why we teach about leadership in school counseling too, because it really takes that ombudsman advocacy, getting to the bottom of things, talking to
Yeah.
people,
Be-
having agency when it comes to like those conversations with the principal. They're getting frustrated
mhm,
over the lying. I'm thinking of a kid who's afraid,
mhm.
in that situation, afraid of getting in trouble,
Yeah, and
and
all of those things together are true,
yeah,
and then you're able to stand in a space of saying, can I look at the big picture and can we put
yeah,
these pieces together? And I feel as though on a micro, like those same things are what happen over and over again when you're just moving in with your passion of what needs to happen for people, for kids,
yeah. And that share is exactly why I do what I do.
There it is.
Because I get a lot of stories, people will tell me about a child or a family or this or that, and usually I ask if they're calling me on something, tell me a story. Tell me a story about something with a child, something with a family. And it's just, what would have happened? I mean, you've changed this child's trajectory,
Mm,
just by what you just did, and getting him in after school programs, all the things that happen. And a lot of times in school counselors, we don't even know how,
hmm.
it is impacted. We
Yeah, I
just
mean, it could have easily ended without the impact of us having the school counselors in those spaces. It could have ended with that, the
yes,
trouble and the you get to come to back to
start
school
the
after a while, and
suspension route,
right, and that and all of those things that also have
yeah,
to happen. And it's so, it feels, it's probably the most rewarding thing ever
yeah,
when I can go in the car. I don't feel super rewarded after, I don't know, a staff meeting, or you know what I mean, but when I know that I stood in the gap for a
yeah,
student that needed it, it's like my
yeah.
day was perfect. You know what I mean? Like it was, I couldn't be doing anything better, you
Right.
know?
That's it. To have
And
a life of advocacy. I mean, and
yeah,
to helping others,
and that's what
when
you're
it's all
doing on
said
a
and
larger
done.
scale. Yeah.
Yeah. When it's all said and done, I know that I've had meaning and purpose in my life. It's not that I've created it, it's just my job and the roles I've served in has allowed me to be in that rather than pushing a product like I started in the beginning or doing something else. The passion of helping folks have the best life possible,
Mm,
really helping them is just such a blessing for
Yeah.
us as a profession to be able to do this every day and get paid to help people. Yeah.
It's so true. And then when you think something that you did just impacted thousands of counselors, I can imagine sitting in my car after something like that going, the counselors won't even know what I just did that helped them. You know, can you,
It's hard.
can you, can you remember a time when that happened where it was like you really had to fight for us and you were just like, wow, that just happened?
Yeah, a lot of times,
Yeah.
something I'll have a hard conversation with someone and I know that's a little uncomfortable because they are doing something that I think is not going to really suit anyone really. So, having them and then thinking, of course you're not going to share it. You're not, so, but just change things. I'm working on some identifying factors for school counselors now that, we haven't had the recognition that we've
Mm,
deserved. And I would go with anyone in the school system that's doing behavioral health and all the other stuff that counselors do. But the school psych, social workers, and school counselors, the PPS people have this in common. And we've been forming and norming and being in a group together, nurses too, and others, to try to really solidify some things for
huh.
our industries together, and a lot of things that we do in order to push the envelope a little bit in regards to the work that we do on school campus, just to be recognized um, as, that we were forgotten. The
Yeah.
behavioral health, they think of all the clinicians, the marriage and family therapists, the clinical psychs, and then they just forget that we're existing in the Department of Healthcare and
Right.
others, public health folks. And they forget that there's people in schools
That we're the mental health professionals that are doing this work. Yeah.
and and most of the work does happen in schools and most of the work has to do with the things that we're doing,
Yeah.
so in school. Same I could do with college and career, same pieces,
Mm,
those pieces happen. And there's a lot of people that have ideas about the college and career aspects of development and what we do in schools, but these are the things that we do. And a lot of times people don't know and they want to do a new legislation like peer counseling. That was a
oh,
recent
really?
legislation. Yeah, recent legislation passed. This group is meeting on peer counseling as if it's better than sliced bread. And they're talking to me about we need to do peer counseling. I mean, all the studies. I said, we do it. I said,
That's
maybe
like,
not to the level that we'd
no,
like
but
to
it's
because we
been
have a large
happening.
caseload, but we do this already. And they're like talking about it and I said, actually, it could be an A through G course.
Yeah.
I was telling this group, and I said, and I can put you with people that have already done peer counseling. I did it in the 90s. I was doing
Yeah.
cross age mentoring with high schools and elementary kids. And so I said, we want to strengthen peer counseling and peer to peer supports in
Yeah, of
schools. Yay.
course.
But don't say we haven't done it. Don't say
Hmm.
now we're coming in with this better idea than you have. It's like inviting someone into my house and then they go into my kitchen, they start rearranging my covers without asking, and I'm thinking that's, those are the things that drive me on it
Well,
because
honor.
we
Yeah, just
didn't get
honor
it.
that this is a journey that we've been on and honor that you might see that this is a need that we can bump up, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't been happening.
That's right. We
Absolutely.
were. I mean, in the beginnings when
Hmm.
I was going to Sacramento and in the 90s and early 2000s, my first explanation to any legislator was when they said, well, you guys don't have any training, right? They thought we were classified non-trained people that just happened to be nice. And I
Oh
said,
my
oh,
gosh.
no, that took maybe advocating for maybe 8 years or
Are
so
you
before I
serious?
stopped getting that ask,
Wow.
about that. Now where we are, when I go into, like, we're going into a new legislative season, I get now legislators who says we want to carry a bill for you. So we would like
Wow.
to carry something that would be statewide around school counselors or mental and behavioral health. And so then we get now to pick and choose, to
Hmm.
on who might author a bill and what we might want, So I have one on the table now, one offer for a legislator that's going to be terming out. They want to go out with a legislation for school counselors. So we'll
I mean,
see.
that would
Yeah.
have been unheard of 20 years ago. I mean, now it's
Yeah.
for someone to come and say that
Yeah.
and it actually be not even a thought, just like we need to do it, and is just, it warms my heart. To be honest, it just makes me happy.
Yeah.
People don't realize how close we could have come in not that far off
Yeah.
past
Yeah.
to slipping away from, having school counselors at all. I know in my district alone, there was a time I was just talking to a coworker of ours. We both remember when we were hustling around to four schools a week. How
I
much
had
income?
three. Yeah. Yeah.
That's like you're basically just putting out one fire after the other and then wondering why they don't remember your name,
Yeah.
And then it's because, though, of the stuff that you're doing that then we are able to then get into the places that we need to get or rise up the next people that are going to be doing what you're doing and step
Yeah.
into your shoes to make sure
Yeah.
these things happen. You know, it's
Well,
important.
and it's not magic on what I do. I
Mm.
mean, it's not anything or like, I don't want to paint a picture like I'm, like, have the skill set, because I think we all have it. I think we do it
It's
with kids
willingness,
every
really.
day.
It's being willing.
Yeah, and it's like I do feel like when I'm advocating for school counselors, like I would when one of my grandchildren he needs advocacy, going
Yeah.
needed to see a counselor and he wasn't getting in. He lives in Seattle. Finally, he was
Mhm.
16 at the time. I said, "Do I need to fly up and meet with your counselor?" And he said,
Yes.
"Yes," and I did. And it was the
I
same
love it.
skill set. It was the
Yeah.
same thing. Is that okay? He's smart. He really needs to be. He needed to be in like a he ended up in the International Baccalaureate program. I could see that
Mm.
he needed that kind of channeling, but he
Mhm.
didn't have the courage to go into see the school counselor. I said, "Look, they're harmless. Go. They're so busy." He kept
Yeah.
saying, "Yeah, but." And then finally, I just thought, fly
Make
up
yourself
there,
known.
talk to the
Yeah.
counselor. I could have done it on Zoom. People say, "Why did you not do that?" Well, I was very passionate. I do it for school counselors too. If I have a
Yeah.
legislator, I don't just like type. I mean, I might do the email, but I also do the visit because I think that I could be more compelling in person.
Yeah.
To reason with things and have a dialogue about the things that they're thinking and what I'm thinking.
Mhm. Then
Try
they
to
have
be
to look.
collaborative.
Yeah,
Tell me what you
because
want. What do you want in this legislation? I'll say.
right. How can
What
you
you
actually it goes back to the personal thing we talked about, like the body language and looking in people's eyes and, asking a couple of personal questions so you can meet on a different level. I mean, you
asking a legislator what drives them into
that's face to
into this
face.
policy work and legislative work. And it's
Mhm.
always very it creates the humanity for them. So then I go, oh, I get them. I get what drove them.
Yeah.
Whether sometimes I know that any one of us lose our way because of the stresses of strange, but to hear
Yeah.
their story of origin, what drove them into it, what was their interest area, is always
Mhm.
fascinating to me. And I guess that's that curiosity I think we all have as school counselors
Mhm.
is the curiosity about the individual.
I'm still so moved by what you said earlier when you said to choose something that you believe in and then choose to do that for your whole life, you're always going to remain motivated because of that. And it got me to thinking that of all the ups and downs in my life, in my adult life, that one constant is that I've always been a school counselor and an advocate for kids. And it was amazing to think about where I was like, wow, there's this season and that season. And it's something that you and I can both, I can tell by just the way you're talking about it, that we can be proud of that. We can be proud of the things that and I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5, 6 years, but I know I'll still be advocating in one way or another for kids. And there's just a real joy in it, and I see that in you as you talk about it. So when people say, why do you keep doing it? It's like, well, why wouldn't I keep doing it? Unless I'm just completely done like some people get, and then you'll know when that time comes. When that time
Yes.
comes, you'll know. And then it will be like pass the torch and
Yeah, it's
someone will
true.
keep running with it.
Well, it's my family, so it
Mhm.
really has become my family too. My
Yeah.
work family and others, and so even when you go out to dinner, a lot of times it's with someone who's in the school counseling profession.
Yep, it
And of course, we
is.
talk about kids and work.
And fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
vacation, maybe vacation, but we do talk about like the work, and
Yeah.
the things that are going on, which is
Yeah.
really
And
a joy.
I definitely was able to enjoy that time with you when we were in Long Beach in
Yeah, when we're
in
dancing.
July. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. I did not okay, I'm going to be honest. I didn't actually believe you. There was a part of my mind was like, no, she doesn't just dance all, just dance it up. But you were like, yeah, I just love dancing. I might be tired the next day, but I don't care. And sure enough, that night we were like, we were having such a good time, just like, you know what? Break free and have a good time. We were
Yeah,
dancing. That was such a great memory.
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of
And I
fun.
just, I think too that because I'm so fortunate to be my age and feel really good. I feel
Yeah.
physically good and I can do that. And I think yeah.
And
And now my inner voice says, if you don't do this now, will you be able to do it in 5 years? So
yeah,
then I'm propelled, like I did an obstacle course with Lori Woodley.
I was just gonna bring that up. That picture that I saw of yours, like, what the heck, woman? Like,
Yeah.
how did
I,
that come about? I saw a picture of you
well,
up on
I
these
didn't realize it was
on
a
these ropes that were looked like they were like a million miles up in the
they
sky. I'm like, what
were,
is
and,
happening
and
here?
I didn't, I mean, what drove me was the fact that, you're 70 and if you don't do it, you're never going to do it. And it was, at
Wow.
the end, it was a zip line. And,
Yeah.
it was, I mean, I was scared, and doing it, but I did it. And then I didn't realize people were watching me. I didn't think I was out of the norm, like there was other
Yeah.
people going up and doing this obstacle course, but I kind of knew that, okay, you got yourself into this, I was up on one of the planks and I was shaking and I said, who's shaking me? So, I'll go, but who's shaking me? And they go, you're shaking yourself. So
Oh.
I said, okay, I can do it. And they said, and then they're trying to encourage me, and they're,
Yeah.
in their 30s or 40s, so they're trying to encourage me. And I'm going, like, you can do it, nothing's going to happen because you have harnesses on. So,
Yeah.
if I'm dangling and I go, oh, yes, like heart attack,
Yeah.
stroke,
There's still a few things I can think of that could actually happen.
happened
Yes.
to me. And I thought, well, they don't know what that's like to be 70,
No.
and thinking
No.
those things, and it was kind of fun. I mean, it was also my dark
It was
humor.
terrifying, but it was like that
Yeah.
moment where you're like, I got me into this. I got to get myself out
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. And I actually would want to do it again, which was kind of crazy because I thought, why did I ever do this to what I was
Yeah.
doing? And then we all do that. We're getting to
Yeah.
something and we're going, why are we doing this? And, and I thought, well, maybe I can do a TED talk on it or something.
Yeah, you totally should.
But
Oh
I
my
thought,
gosh.
and it's almost like people were taking pictures, and I was so focused on myself, which hardly happens. I'm focused
Yeah.
on everyone else, and so, but this, I had to be focused on
You had to
myself.
think about where your hands were and your feet and what your
Yes,
very
and
next
so,
move was going to be and all
and
that.
in the world, that were people that were taking pictures, I wasn't aware
Yeah.
that was going on, that people were watching and talking about me going through this thing. I was just like one of the crowd. I
Yeah.
wasn't. There was nothing exceptional about me.
Yeah.
But except for them, I think probably I was the oldest person to go through it, and at this time anyway, on this
Yeah.
day. So, oh well,
Probably one of
probably
very
maybe
few, if
very
ever.
rare.
And yeah. But
Yeah.
it's and I think, did you look down or did you just look straight ahead? Because
No,
the
I looked
picture that
down.
I saw,
I knew.
the picture I saw looked really, really far up. So I
Yeah, I
don't
was
know.
really
That's
far up, and and I was noticing. I mean, just to be very honest, it's like, I wasn't sure I understood my body.
oh
Two,
yeah.
I'm not as strong. And so I said, 10 years ago, you would have known if you could make the next plank or walk on that
Yeah.
wire, you would have been a little bit more body confident, And so I was, I was very focused on that, that whole, the aging process and what was
Yeah.
going through my mind
You're like, my
about
body
that
is,
and
yeah, I
why I was
don't have all the same
there.
capabilities. How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? How you
Anyway,
were ultra aware of your body in a way that normally you would never be. That's for sure.
yes, yes, absolutely. So,
But then when you made it to the bottom, what did people cheer or what happened?
yeah,
They did.
yeah. Alma
And
Lopez was there, so she's a real
yeah, she said
sweet,
she
the
saw it live.
National
She's all,
School
you'd
Counselor of
be
the
so
Year. She's
proud
the one
of
that
her.
took most
Yeah.
of it, and she came over to me because it was, it's like, I was relieved, that was
Yeah.
happening, but it was also, her her ideas because I think I'm a little older than her parents, so.
Mm.
I always tell some of the younger people on our board, I said, I might be even older than your grandparents, so I don't know, but I think there was something there for her,
Yeah.
and she was very much like kind of gave me more perspective on what I just did. For me,
Yeah.
it would have been just like I do with a legislator. I walk out of the office and I don't think too much about it. I
She
really
was the
just
one, actually,
do it.
she was the one. It wasn't, it was, she was the one that came up to me in October and said, I have got to show you this picture. You wouldn't believe what Loretta did. She's all, I was so proud of her.
Yes.
She's the one that told me
I was
about it.
proud of myself too. So,
Yeah.
in
I was like,
recognition.
wow, that's so cool. So, and it is, there's correlations on life, you know, of us taking risks and doing risky things and being in the moment, doing the right thing, and then coming out the other side. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot. I think that's kind of why they have that ropes course, is so we learn that we can do hard things.
Yeah. Yeah, we
You know,
can.
or
Yeah, I
we can
think so too.
remind ourselves that we can do things outside of our comfort zone and all that good
Yeah.
stuff. And there's been a lot of change lately. I mean, even right now, it must keep you so busy and focused. You don't have any time to think about, why am I doing this? Because there has been a lot of change even in our last year or so. Um, what are some of the changes that you've seen, and how are you navigating the changes that are happening in California that you think are really impacting the counselors and the students?
Mm. Well, you can't, you know, when you have a $4.2 billion put into a system for
Mm,
youth, mental and behavioral health, basically, you know, that changes everything. You know,
mm.
it's a big investment for even for a big state like California. And um, when we were cooking up the idea, which I would say some of the things were discussed with Tony Thurman. One of the things is that he says, you know, I would like to give scholarships for counselors. I said, that would be lovely. We ended up with $20,000 in scholarships. So,
Mhm.
but I said, if you don't do something to build their capacity, you know, they do these 2 years, they have to usually work a job, school counselors that are going through training. And then they, you know, like waitressing or something, you know, but
This
they're
is
not in
true. Yeah.
school and you're not getting the full immersion, you know, of it. It would be
Mhm.
really lovely. And then we end up on a residency program, which is what they do for
Oh,
teachers. And so,
yeah.
you know, I haven't double checked with him to say, did that happen from that conversation? But my sneaking feeling is that, you know, I said, you can
Probably so, because that's one of the first of its kind going on here in California, I believe.
in the nation. There's nothing like it in
Wow.
the nation. So
Wow.
to do that and look at that, and then of course, and that happens, and then I'm working to help those function, you know, in the different areas that are running residency programs now. So that's been phenomenal to me. It's really makes a big difference. Um, the other thing is, I think the fee schedule, which is what they call California Youth Behavior Health Initiative, which was at $4.2 billion fee schedule. So in that, that's billing private insurance. And what I say is, what can, you know, if I ever in a meeting in the beginning of this, when we've been meeting on this for 4 years now, and in
Oh,
the beginning of the
wow.
meeting, I felt like I had to breathe in a brown bag afterwards because it was so difficult.
Intense. Yeah.
There was Department of Healthcare with their ideas, and you know, I brought education partners together, and we began meeting with the Department of Healthcare, and then another group was this health information group, and
Is that along the lines of the wellness coaches and such,
the
or?
wellness coaches is one thing. I mean, those are also a factor that's impacting us, you know, which is, you know, they wanted to have basically a 2 year, 4 year trained person
Mm,
doing risk assessment and suicide assessments, you know.
I'm
So
glad you stood in the gap for that. Yeah.
with that, yeah, we were victorious in those things. But, you know, we're looking, they took our standards and started the school counselor standards started dropping in for the wellness coaches. And it also meant kind of drove us to, you know, we need to put these things into ed code. So it's
Mhm.
defined in regards to that. This is what's needed. And so let's go ahead and spell that out and
Yeah.
work on that. And I get the difficulty. But, you know, if it's not school counselors and who we have master's levels and trained. And if I don't explain it, then I feel like people that are listening are going to go, oh my God, you're the one that made
Yes.
us do that. But, you know, but and one of us that wellness coaches would get it and then we wouldn't, and then what a disaster that
No, it
is.
was a whole bunch. It took advocating to make sure that whatever, because
Yeah.
we know there's money that's going to be spent, but how they're spent sometimes determines the conversations
It
we have,
does.
and
And I've
enlightening
tried to
them.
put it, I've tried to put in protections, you know, even with
Hmm.
the, you know, I continue on the fee
Yeah,
schedule, which is
the
brilliant
fee
on the
schedule. Yeah,
insurance,
yeah.
but the scope of practice and to explain why. And the way I explain it is a nurse practitioner. And I had this
Mm.
conversation with a nurse practitioner, asking her when I was in the office having an exam. And I said, how many units you have to be a nurse practitioner? 48 units. How many hours of supervision, clinical supervision, do you have to have before you get your license? 1,000. School counselors are 48 units, and we're 800. Okay. And I said, and you can give me opioids without asking the doctor for permission. I mean,
Thank
that's a
you.
huge risk.
Yeah, think
Huge
about that.
risk, in my opinion. You're passing on narcotics, and yet they have, to me, the same amount of units and time in a master's level
You're absolutely
trained.
right.
And I
Yeah.
just felt like, we are up to it. We're smart people to go into a profession. We have a master's degree. We should be
Hmm.
able to, we don't have to. I think sometimes we get bogged down on that argument in regards to the risk of that. And a lot of times it kind
But
of
we should be able to
lands
have
on,
confidence.
like, well, if you assess them in a different way and you're only mild, and then they end up with, you know, or committing suicide, then what happens?
Mm.
And I said, well, we don't do it that way. That's just the wrong way to do it. You don't have to, like, oh, but, working out how we do that in the school and taking on that responsibility, to me, is extremely important. And I
Yeah.
know people have differed with me, and maybe that's part of this conversation, but
That's part of the
I'm
process.
not backing down on that one. Because I had to hire, and I was at a point where my school counselors didn't want to do that. I said, well, we'll get training for you
Yeah.
to do that work. But I
Yeah.
really, that is my just a very practical choice. Someone has to do
Hmm.
it. School psychologists are doing, their IEP work and other things like that. They're not available like we need them to do. Not going to have some 2-year trained person doing it either.
Mm-mm.
So how do we go about creating a safe space for counselors to learn, and,
Yeah.
in that area, giving them the authority to do that and supporting them on it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you still have many things coming up ahead of you before there's no stopping you
Yeah.
soon. It sounds like to me.
No, there's no downtime,
There's no downtime. You take the downtime you need because we need you to be sharp and ready to go. We also think about the 25-year of school counseling in the association being a help to the counselors. It is the way that you reach up but it's also the way that you guys reach down and provide things. And one thing that you guys have provided for us recently is standards.
Okay.
And how did that come about? Because that's kind of cool. I really was able to dig into that when you guys gave me an early copy. And of course, being very familiar with the ASCA standards, I was able to then dig into our California standards. I was lucky enough to do that before it got in the hands of many. And I was just incredibly impressed with the
Yeah.
quality that it's providing for us. How did that all come about?
Yeah, and superintendents come to me and just are so grateful, and administrators, because I think it really spells it out. But it came with the idea that, our scope of practice, and the idea that our role and function, you'll read it in all the research, is just all over the place what we do, and it's been a continuous problem as long as I've been a school counselor. And then just really think through with group thought on what we need to do in order to define the scope of practice in California. And that's basically, there was a team of people that began the process, and then we ended up trying to get a broad group of people. We met together and at Apple Park. So I thought I need a good meeting place. So I asked Apple if they would let us come. So that,
Nice.
yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I mean, they were helping us. So I told them it was a big project and we need, like, to build the team and build the work. And the work took about a year and a half. We now have a continual practice, which it's the standards on steroids, basically, but it's like
Yeah.
standards, but what would be entry level in this one element area? What would be
Okay.
like advanced work? And
Huh.
that is at the printer. So
Oh,
we will have that done in, just a little bit of time and out to the field. And so we're excited about that because we think
yeah.
that'll help define job descriptions, performance
Hmm.
evaluations, all that. And when you look at it, we've always had, like, counselors still tell me I'm evaluated on teacher evaluation.
Right,
So
right. That
now I
still
say,
happens some
here's
places.
the solution. Give this to
Hmm.
them. you can use this. It's about our profession. But people have, some people thought some things should get more notice than others or less notice than others, So we did feedback loops with them. We made sure we put out to the field and got input. We put out to the administrators and got input. So we wanted to have a legitimized
Yeah.
document that
Yeah.
was
That makes
vetted.
sense in the real world of what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
how.
and I think it is. And I think it is. I mean, I've been able to lean on it and look and kind of compare, and it matches with what we're doing in,
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
school counseling right now. So I am thinking, like, before you go, I'm interested in, like, what message, and I have three groups of people that I want to hear because I think it will be a little bit different answer for each. What message first we'll talk about that you would give the people going into the field of school counseling? Um, what would you like them to know about it?
Yeah.
And then for educators, and then for people that want to get into leadership
Yeah.
and advocacy. I'd like
Okay.
to know what you would share with those people. Let's start with counselors. What would you share with people that are just getting into this field?
Yeah. Uh, your life will be about having a life of meaning and purpose. Your work drives that. It's, yeah, it's what it is. And so you don't have to create that outside of your job. It becomes your mission. Um, yeah. And your healing of others. And so what a
Mm,
blessing. So I say it's a great profession.
it is.
Um,
It's a blessing. You're so right.
yeah. Educators, the way to describe that is like we're like a three-legged stool. And I don't have to do it as much. I did with one of the former state superintendents because he kept talking not counselors, but teachers, Tom Thorlickson, teachers,
Yeah.
administrators. I've heard, so fed up hearing just that,
Yeah.
We don't have that like it was back then, but it's a three-legged stool. It won't be balanced without having counselors, teachers, and administrators,
Mm,
as far as the core team, and I would probably expand it a little bit and say, people that are working to support the nurses, school psychologists, it doesn't have to be all centered around us, but that is so important to our kids. Without that, the other two are just going to be, to me, very, myopic and not really getting into things it causes. And the research is clear on that, so that's what I
mhm.
would tell an educator. The research is clear. When actually the research is so clear that it says if you go to support a kid with their academics or their career in college, going through this personal social domain, the fact about the counseling piece, the who they are as human beings, it's much
Mm,
more effective than just giving them the information.
that's
It's
right.
about the personal touch and having that. So I would tell them that it's just instrumental, and I think they get it now. The last one is leaders.
Yes, leaders, advocate, people that want to be that kind of leader that you've
Just
walked
not even
into.
education leaders, but yeah.
Not only education leaders, but because you did share with me, like, education, yes, but you've been able to touch um, many different areas of legislation even through doing this work.
Uh,
But people that have that feeling to say, I want to develop that leadership. I want to be more bold.
mhm. Well, from my perspective about myself, is I have a strong moral compass. So I believe in doing the right thing, and I sometimes just someone said to me, "You suffer a lot," and I thought, well, that's not a compliment, and she said, "No, that's a compliment." And I suffered with all the decisions I make. I don't take
Mm,
anything like, I'm, how
yeah,
I show up, how I am with a person. I really try to be mindful.
and
And,
intentional.
and since we're talking about the mindfulness of it all,
Hmm.
mindful of what the person is, what I'm trying to get to, having a moral compass to the people matter uh, with me. And I think it's important for leaders to have that too. If they get lost, that's their North Star. People say, well, go with your North Star. I think your North Star is your moral compass, right and wrong. What is, and I know people describe it a little differently, what right and wrong. I may see it a little differently, but you're right, and if you've suffered through determining what is right, and keeping focused on it,
Hmm.
I think that's the most important thing. So, some counselors have said, "Oh, it's wonderful that you believe in us." And I said, "Well, I don't know if I would describe it that way." I do, but I believe in the opportunities that kids need. That's
Yeah.
my moral compass.
And you
And
know
I
that it comes
believe that
through
school
that.
counselors can get to that. And so
Mm-hmm.
that framing has always helped me when I get all mixed up in all the adult drama that always happens, always, then it's going back to what my compass is and where it is with kids, and try not to get pulled away into the
Mm.
drama of you need to give yourself time. Because sometimes I do, people are like, oh my gosh, what they're saying awful things about me, you
Oh
know,
gosh.
things like that, and you're hearing or you're wondering, if it was about school counselors, like my moral and most North Star, then I
Yeah.
would lose sight of it because, someone that wasn't treating me right, that was a school counselor, would sway me. Kids don't,
Right.
because I think of them as not being adults yet, not having formed, their maturity or their ability to reason.
Uh-huh.
It's easy for me to give them grace and to understand them and try to help them wherever they're at. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and I like the idea of saying, for each person, their North Star needs to be first identified and understood, and then you can stand in it. I
yeah,
wonder if a lot of people sway to and fro because they haven't sat down and had that moment of like, what is my North Star? What is the thing that I can stand on above? And for you, it couldn't just be, oh, I'm trying to get more school counselors. It's because of the impact the school counselors can make on the kids.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that's huge. Yeah. And then that is that deeper thing that people see in you, because
Mhm.
that's kind of like what I talked to you from the beginning is like you can see that passion in a caring way. And it's not just, I think if people find what they care about, their values, what really matters to them, and then move confidently in that, then whatever field they're in, they'll be a leader,
That's
because how can you not with that kind of, when you're moving that way,
right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well,
But, I mean, it really encourages me too to take that time to stop, and this is a good time to do it, going into a new year and just taking that time to reflect upon your real values and where you want to be, why you're doing it. And then it kind of strengthens us through the hard times because it's not always easy. I mean, let's get real.
no, it's
it's,
not.
it's not.
Let's be real about that. Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
not just like, oh, yay, yay, we're going to advocate some more.
Yeah. And when and sometimes you're just thrown a loop, and someone doesn't
Yeah.
think, or does it, or questions, like my intentions, or
Questions your
something.
intentions.
But when you're a
Yeah.
leader, you have to be able to
You have to
weather
have a
those
little bit of a
storms.
thick skin, right? Of like, not in a, have a soft heart, but kind of a thick skin. It feels like you have to have that balance.
You have
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I know you've had people stand up straight up and just be like, I disagree with you. And you have to be like,
Yeah. Well,
that's okay. You can.
I did have early on when we started the association, I had people from the Old Order Association go to ASCA and stand at our, like they have a leadership development institution and they have a delegate assembly. And they stood up at the microphone and said that Loretta had taken down the whole state of California
Oh my.
single-handedly. And so that was a hard moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it
not
wasn't
easy.
there. And I had to navigate that, for a while. And yeah, I got through it. I called my superintendent that I admired. Sometimes we have really great leaders, and she was one that taught me a lot, Dr. Louise Taylor. But I called her. I said, I am in so trouble. I'm so troubled.
Troubled. Yeah. By
People
that
have heard
news.
this. I mean, they turn their head and they
Yeah.
jerk their head away from me. They think I've done something awful.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
because, okay, like, for me, like the feeling that man, I'm really not seen and I'm misrepresented in such a deep way, like that kind of like hits your heart when that kind of thing happens,
It was
you
it
know?
was painful. Yeah.
Ah,
It was really
because
painful because I didn't know if I would
because
recover.
your heart and you're giving it your all. And I know I feel that way when I feel like I got misrepresented. That takes me a minute to be like, oh, they don't know my heart. If only they
Yeah.
knew. And then you have to regroup and just say, you know what, they don't. They don't know my heart. So that's
And
that's
I
okay.
persevere. I mean, and it was sort of, I do tend to forget harm that's done to me. I just, you do as a
Mm-hmm.
child. I always go, okay. I would try to be mad at someone and then I'd forget to be mad, so, yeah, so
Uh,
I tend to just move on, like I'm
uh,
not going to waste my emotional energy on this.
we
And
have things we got to
that
get
one took
done.
me a little bit, maybe a few
Yeah.
weeks before I kind of like settled in, like, when I got back home and no one in the school district knew what I had, except for the superintendent, what I dealt with. And so I could kind
Mm-mm.
of reform. And next time I went to ask, people were fine with me. People
Huh.
didn't seem to, like, I don't know. We just kept building the mountain and they would come. That's
Yeah.
what I always said, build a mountain, they will come,
Yeah.
from the field of
And
dreams.
for the right reasons. Yeah. From Field of Dreams and for the right reasons in the big picture.
And so as we did it, people began to understand that I didn't take down the whole state of
No,
California
no.
single-handedly for school counselors.
As a matter of fact, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Wow. Well, this has been such a cool conversation. I mean, every time we talk, it's enlightening, but this is extra special that you were able to come on this podcast, and our listeners are able to just get a little glimpse into who you are, and just some of the influence. And not only that, but I'm glad that we were able to talk about some of the reasons you've been an influence. Because that's what it really matters, is what happens in the heart. And I don't know. I mean, I think that we're going to have lots of conversations like this to come. There's going to be quite a few women that have hit all kinds of different industries and education and beyond. And really, we are all one big family moving towards our passions and making a
yeah,
difference in the world. And so, thank you for coming on today.
thank you.
It's been wonderful.
It's a
And,
joy.
oh, I'm so glad. And well, I'll catch up with you next time. We'll talk to you later.